Okay, welcome back everyone to this next session of the IMarEST annual conference. Just a reminder that we're using the tool Slido to ask questions, so please use the code MLA College. And without further ado, I'd like to hand over to the host of this session, Philip.
Okay, thanks Daniel. Good morning, good afternoon. Welcome everyone to this session in the career stream of the IMarEST annual conference. Yeah, my name is Phil Williams. I'm a member of the IMarEST Technical Leadership Board, and I'll be hosting this session. I'm joined today by John Chudley, Rector of MLA College, who will present Distance Learning in a Professional Context, the MLA College Experience. MLA is the learning and education arm of the IMarEST, and through MLA College, IMarEST can provide marine professionals with a way to advance their careers by gaining academic qualifications from wherever they are in the world. In this presentation, John will introduce MLA College as a distance learning provider and outline how it delivers through utilisation of its award-winning total learning package. John began honing his skills as a mechanical engineering apprentice before progressing to higher education and completing a PhD in marine technology. He has held various positions in academia, including Provost of Warsash Maritime Academy at Southampton Solent University, where he was also Professor of Engineering Education, and Head of the Institute of Marine Studies and Director of Research and Innovation at the University of Plymouth. John has also been employed with the Civil Service. Positions include being a Director of the Learning and Skills Council and the National Apprenticeship Service. Having experience and a strong belief in the benefits and opportunities vocational education brings to young people, he was passionate in his role and was instrumental in the development of higher degree apprenticeships. John has also acted as Director and Board Member to a number of companies and organisations. At present, he is Council Member of the RNLI, Board Member of the Engineering Council, and Chair of its Registration and Standards Committee. So welcome to everyone, and over to you, John.
Thank you, Philip, and good morning, everyone. If you'll just bear with me, I'll do this awkward Zoom moment when I share my screen. Okay, I'm hopeful that you can see all of that, and perhaps Philip, you can just give me a thumb up that I can see you and that you can see the screen. Excellent, good. Well, good morning to you all. Dr. Jaimie Cross will be joining me virtually later on in this presentation as a video input where we interview a candidate that has been through this process. So good morning. I'm going to spend about 30 minutes looking at distance learning in a professional context. I mean, I think as a fellow of the Institute and Chartered Engineer, routes through to professional registration is the key thing that should be most important, and for all of us. It's not so much the degree. In my case, it's not the PhD. Our license to practice, I put that in quotes because of course we don't have a license to practice, but is actually our professional registration. So any education, knowledge, understanding and competence programs that we can put together in a holistic manner is only going to help lead towards routes towards professional registration. So a little bit first about MLA College. I'm just going to pick up on a few words in this, but citizens of the world and opportunities accessible globally. I think this is absolutely key. If we look at traditional education, of course, without travel, and perhaps we do have to think of that in a post-COVID-19 world that we're going to be living in, not everything is accessible globally. And what we try and do through the MLA College is all our programs have them accessible globally anywhere. So you could be at sea, you could be on land, you can be literally anywhere and access that and actually develop through your career and progress indeed as you require at different times as your career progresses. And indeed in our mission, that comes through delivering outstanding flexible education and training. Flexible is the word there, and you'll see more of that later in the presentation. Also in what we do, I think it's very important now is that promoting the conservation and sustainable use of the environment for the advancement of the global community. And that's perhaps never more important than in the marine and maritime world. We were fortunate to be joined by the UN Assistant Secretary General yesterday when we launched our new Global Sustainable Development Programme. And that came out as the key push through the UN Sustainable Development Goals. And to achieve that, we all have to buy into conservation and sustainable use of our environment. And just pick up, we all have values as companies, but I want to pick up on one or two things here that are perhaps unique in that equality, diversity and inclusion is extremely important in what we do. And in actual fact, very easy to demonstrate because with flexible distance learning, of course, inclusion for all, wherever you are in the globe, is a given. So we're not, restricted on traveling or fees to the UK. We don't charge separate fees for overseas students, etc. It's a distance learning program that is available to all. So our offer, I think the first bullet is perhaps the most important in this, but a provider of online, blended and distance learning programs and short courses in the maritime and marine field. I'll come back to online, blended and distance learning in a moment, because it's perhaps important to understand the difference between online and distance learning, because a lot of people are jumping on the bandwagon, obviously, because of the COVID-19 situation, and saying they're perhaps doing distance learning when really they're doing synchronous teaching. So we'll come back to that in a moment and understand the difference between those. Within that, we offer bachelor's and master's programs. We're an award-winning educational provider for our total learning package. That is the system that the distance learning sits on. And we are very unique in that we don't have a vast number of academics delivering the knowledge and understanding material. We do have a core of academics, but we actually utilize a diverse range of associate lecturers who come from academia, they come from industry. So it's very important to understand that we have the correct experts delivering the correct material. So it's a slightly different model from a traditional university. And that, for instance, if you do a master's dissertation with us to do a master's top-up degree, yes, you will have an academic supervisor from the MLA, but most importantly, you'll have an associate tutor, associate lecturer with the relevant experience to suit the requirements you need. And I think that's a really important really important model. And also the last one, the technology enhanced education and training to a number of large organizations. So it's not just academic programs that we can offer tailor and bespoke programs in what we do. So just a little bit about distance learning and perhaps as a specialism. We could say now over the past 3 months, we've seen is the traditional mode under threat? I'm not sure. I mean, I think there will always be traditional universities delivering traditional programs, but we're looking at this in a professional context. So I think we will see some changes in the way that things can be done, but should things simply be online or more complex? Well, online, people have been saying, and universities, and I'm not saying this is bad, it's just being clear about what's being delivered, that they have put all of their programs onto distance learning. That's not strictly correct. What they've done is they've put them online, and they are doing synchronous teaching online. So in a way that I'm doing you this presentation now, this is a synchronous presentation and you're listening to me. Yes, it can be recorded and you'll look back at it, but it's not specifically designed as a distance learning package. The distance learning package, as you'll see in a moment, is something that is holistic, where all the materials are available to the individual. It's not simply just putting a lecture online. So yes, it's been a needs must. A lot of educational establishments, of course, have been putting all their lectures online. And it's a useful, very useful resource to actually have that you can look back on, but it's not distance learning. And I think it's important to understand that. And in a true distance learning, what we have is we have access to expertise. So be it via WhatsApp, be it via arranged Skype calls or Zoom calls, there's always an important that you have access to a tutor to actually support the distance learning and what you do. So it's not, you are certainly not left to your own devices. And if anything, it's actually more resource intensive for the higher educational establishment to do distance learning. The packages aren't just put there and left. And again, the last one, particularly over the last few months, sustainability is a must. It's needed in everything we do. It's no longer a preference. And I think that is really important. And we have to think about how distance learning can actually contribute to that. Of course, I'm not saying that we're all going to stop flying and traveling around the world, but I actually think that we really need to look at what is the best way to achieve the outcomes it is that we're trying to achieve. So just as to what do we offer? Well, there are a range of programs, and more of this can be found. I'm not going to go through those, apart from just saying from a IMarEST perspective, the MSc top-ups were developed alongside IMarEST to look at the routes through to professional registration. So for instance, if more knowledge and understanding was required to be demonstrated at level 7, i.e. master's level, then it's actually a route to achieving that and allows, so this is where the professional context comes in. So this allows you to gain that knowledge and understanding in the required areas that can help you towards chartered engineer registration. Of course, it doesn't give you chartered engineer registration. No academic program does. It has to be linked with your occupational competence and your professional competence. For those that perhaps are professionally registered, it's been identified that MBAs and in specialist areas need to be available from a professional context, and you'll see that we've actually got one there in maritime operations, as well as other areas where MLA College are branching out into, for instance, fintech, capital markets, entrepreneurship, where there's been a market demand for what we can offer in a distance learning context. I mentioned a program that we launched yesterday with the United Nations Assistant Secretary General. This is a new innovative program that is innovative in its delivery model. It was going to be year 1 was going to be residential, and then the next 2 levels, what traditionally we would say would be years 2 and 3, but we're going to be delivered in a distance learning context and might take 2 years, they might take 1 year, they might take 3 years. The idea is being that moving away from the traditional 3-year degree. It'll be a knowledge and understanding program that suits the individual and allow them to progress as they need to progress. Because of COVID-19, we're actually changing the first year of the program, and it will be done in a synchronous way. So we will be lecturing online, but as an experienced distance learning provider, we'll be obviously backing that up with all the support materials and interaction with the students that will make it an extremely dynamic environment, which is extremely important in anything being distance learning to keep that interest. So distance learning, it's important, as I say, it's not just putting your lectures online. MLA has a total learning package, which is has won awards for its design. And this is where you start looking at distance learning in a holistic manner. And these are just screenshots from our TLP. And if you have a look, everything is there for the students. So you've got welcome there, my module, you've got handbook, you get news, you've got contacts, you've got all the technical requirements there. And if you go into the module, you'll actually have the lectures, be it in research methods, being what it actually is. There again, you've got the handbook, health and safety documents, all the program documents, any study help that's required, all the assessment, all the marking pro forma, everything is actually there for the student. And what's important as well is that it's designed in such a way as that this can be put on a memory stick and available to an individual. So as if they're at sea, for instance, and they have an intermittent web access, they do not have to rely on that. So again, this comes back to accessibility and the importance of accessibility in what we do. And it's backed up, this is just here that back up with a lecture in this case, but it might be a lecture, it might be videos. But the important thing as well there that you have, for instance, down there you can see the lecture transcript and everything. So as people, if for instance they're having trouble seeing the video, or again because of computer speeds or whatever is taking place, then in actual fact they can see the lecture transcript and go through and actually mark up the transcript and then actually discuss that with their tutor. So that's available through the Total Learn package, both online and offline. There's also a web portal that is actually available, and where you can, it's there, my modules, etc. Everything is there. You can go through your modules. You can see how far you've got to go, what your progress is, etc. And again, transcript in what you do, and just showing what that looks like. So the important thing is it's holistic, and what it does, all the materials, the individual needs are all in one place. And for some of our training modules, also, we all need it now. There is an app available. And again, you know, you don't need a computer, you don't need anything here. You can access this through the app. So there we're looking at an introduction to financial and economic models in business and lectures. So you can actually watch that on the go, be it you're traveling on the train or whatever, and actually use that time for professional development. And of course, professional development is key for all of us in a professional registration context. So back now to perhaps a broader in the professional recognition and progression. This is perhaps UK centric, but I think we utilize this across the globe from our professional registration. But on the left are the levels of knowledge and understanding we have in the UK, where 2 is equivalent to our GCSE O levels in old school. Level 3 is A levels. Level 4, 5, and 6 would be a bachelor's program, and level 7 would be a master's program. And you can see on the right how that links with professional registration. In this case, the MarTech register with IMarEST. So we got MarTech, RMarTech, and CMarTech. But it's important to understand that the solid green bit tends to be the knowledge and understanding, but the grey bit on the right are really the review of competence and commitment. So it's understanding that all of that makes up part of the professional registration. And I think the most important thing, and the reason on the left it's shown as a stairway, is it should be recognized that you should be allowed to step on and step off as your career requires it. And that if we can get people professionally registered, for instance, at level 3, they're starting to consider their job, in quotes, as a profession and not just a job. And then you show through the staircase that in actual fact, as they progress their career, then so can their professional registration change as well as their career change, and they gain more knowledge and understanding and more competence and commitment. So an example, this is something that was done with an organisation who were looking to look through routes to chartered marine technologist. So, and they wanted a joined up program. So what we have here, it looks very complex, but it's not. It is an integrated, holistic program. So on the left of this diagram is the knowledge and understanding. So we work with this organisation to embed, and you'll see they're slightly shaded out now, but a postgraduate diploma in sustainable maritime operations, which is done by distance learning. So they can actually undertake that in their workplace and not have to spend any time away. They could do the MSc, but the important thing is that indeed that could also be an occupational competence project. So again, not doing knowledge and understanding, not doing a degree for the sake of doing a degree, but actually embedding it across what they're doing in the workplace. So in the middle, what you've actually got is the occupational competence. And that is what is done in the workplace and delivered primarily by the employer. What we did here, we recognized with that employer that if required, they could do a 6-month industry attachment to address specific competency requirements. So if an individual, in this case, it was more to do with, as you can see, going to sea by the entry requirements above. But if they hadn't perhaps done enough time at sea and they would have benefited from doing another 6-month placement, then they can actually do that. And on the right-hand side, of course, is the professional competence. So what you've got is a holistic design of a program that has those 3 columns. And once you've done that, then ultimately through the professional review interview, that can lead to professional registration. I think the important thing on the right as well is the portfolio that is maintained to show that holistic approach. And this is a bit of a plug for the IMarEST Echo tool. We persuaded the employer here to use the IMarEST Echo CPD tool, which again, we should all be using for recording our own continuing professional development. So there is a program that looks very complex, but actually stripped down is just looking at 3 columns. However, what it is doing is bringing it all together in one package. Just to echo at a glance, this is the IMarEST tool. I hope you've all got it on your mobiles. If not, you can all download it after this presentation. But this is where those of you that are all professionally registered should be maintaining your CPD record to maintain your professional registration. But it is a good way to keep a log and a reflective log of what we do as well. So what I just wanted to do next is show a video of an individual that has done an MSc top-up with us as a route through to professional registration. So I'm now going to hand over to Dr. Jaimie Cross.
Hello everyone, my name is Jaimie Cross. I'm the Head of Academic Operations at MLA College, and I'm joined today by Brady Hogg, one of our former students who has recently completed an MSc in Engineering for Marine Professionals. Brady is here to talk about the extent to which distance learning might help engineers and marine professionals advance their careers and possibly help achieve professional registration.
I always wanted to be an engineer, or I think I did, especially the skills associated with engineering, such as problem solving. That really seemed to work with me. When I was in Sea Cadets as a teenager, I studied some basic marine engineering, and eventually I chose the Royal Navy as my career path. Then about 10 years ago, I chose to come ashore and didn't really know what to do. And an opportunity arose in Fleetwood Nautical Campus. Working in the educational sector was very new, but I was able to transfer a huge amount of skills from my previous experience in the Navy through to the job where I am now.
How did you hear about MLA College, and how did you hear about the program on which you eventually enrolled, the master's program?
Well, I've been searching for a course for some time. I actually did a postgraduate qualification with my previous university to start with, and I thought that I wanted to top up to master's level, and it was an ideal opportunity to prepare me for chartered engineer. It satisfied everything. It just seemed to fit straight away. It was that moment where you realised, actually, yes, everything about this course is what I have wanted. I possibly could have gone down the experienced engineer route towards chartered engineer. But I'm actually really glad I chose this master's degree, because I never really imagined how much experience I would gain during the undertaking of this program of study, but more so actually how enjoyable it's been and how satisfying it's been. And it's allowed me to approach the chartered engineer in a very different way than I would have done before, not just by ticking the box to say I have an academic qualification, but with the new skills and experience that I've gained along the way.
Is how do you cope with that constant juggling act of the professional and personal and study schedules? It must be difficult.
Very difficult. I am lucky though. I have a very supportive network around me. My employer are very supportive. Enter with your eyes open. Make sure you are very well aware of what you are undertaking and what it takes to do what you want to achieve. But thankfully, my family are very understanding, and I've had full support, and they've really been helpful. And I think they're probably grateful I've finished now, but they were supportive throughout the entire process.
Okay, so I think it's important just on that video to bear in mind, of course, doing distance learning is not easy, you know, and you do need support mechanisms. I think what we generally find is that if it's done in conjunction with employers, and employers understanding that, you know, it's perhaps routes through to professional registration, which is going to benefit their future skills needs as well as yours as an individual, then, you know, that can work extremely well. But yes, it's no shortcut, and it's extremely hard work, as you saw there. But I think the important thing there from a distance learning context and with support mechanisms that MLA College is that it's more than just an academic qualification. You know, it is allowing you to gain some of those skills and indeed demonstrate some of the other requirements around both occupational and professional competence that are required for professional registration. So just a little bit now perhaps about future. And I use the term higher level skills on purpose instead of higher education, because I think higher level skills, from my perspective, includes education, and it's come into that holistic view and not trying to separate education from occupational and professional competence. But I think marine and maritime can lead the way in being innovative and engaging in promoting different and non-traditional routes. I accept for the when we're looking at officer cadet, you know, that is needs certain specific things from a legislative and certification point of view. But beyond that, in routes through to the full degrees and chartered and professional registration, we can promote different and non-traditional routes. We've got to look at the vocational and technical pathways. And again, it should be a joint enterprise between education and employers. That was the beauty of the diagram I showed you a few slides back when we worked with an organization to do that. That was completely designed in consultation to satisfy the requirements of the employer and the skills, the future skills that they required. I think what will happen post-COVID-19, people have been saying this, but maybe it will now happen. But I think even at undergraduate level, we'll start seeing up to 50% will be offered outside the university campus. I'm not talking about necessarily sandwich degrees. I'm talking about something far more innovative in that, i.e. maybe similar to our Global Sustainable Development Programme. And I think the important thing, and this is quite new for the UK, the blurring of distinctions between public and private providers. We are a private provider. There are not many higher education institutions that are private providers in the UK. I know it's very common across the globe, but it's certainly new for the UK. So hopefully more competition will also result in higher quality and more fit for purpose in what employers and individuals require. So just to say what I mean by holistic, if we look at traditional routes, in the UK we have apprenticeships, so that's the inside of that diagram. Of course, we have academic routes. That's the green around the outside of the diagram. What we don't tend to do is join them up in the way that we should. So I think the future is more about, if we're looking here, that's at level 7, which would be master's level, but is actually not treating the crust, i.e. the green, the traditional academic part, and the inside of the pie, if I can put it like that, what would sort of be the traditional apprenticeship route, but actually design it in a holistic manner. And also, to a certain extent, that ultimately makes professional registration clearer and easier, because if you had a holistic qualification, in quotes, I'm talking of the whole slice there, not just the degree on the outside, but the whole thing, then hopefully down the line, that might lead to you being automatically registrable, which is not the case at the moment. So last few slides, just to say, this then leads, of course, to progression within the professions. And if we look at engineering from an IMarEST context, I think in the past, we all know that that pyramid in orange is actually upside down. We have more chartered engineer registrants than we do Eng Tech. We have to find ways, and we've been saying this for many years, I realize that, but to make people realize that they can become professionally registered, and I'm being ageist in what I'm saying now, but or I should say relatively new in their career, but perhaps we are generally talking about younger people that have done apprenticeships or the equivalent around the globe, that to get them into professional registration. So as they start thinking of engineering as a profession, we can start doing that with more innovative programs, more holistic designed programs. And that's the only way we'll start to stop people thinking that we all need chartered engineer. That is absolutely not the case. And we need to be thinking that, you know, having a degree, you have to have a degree to be professionally registered. That is not the key. It is all about occupational and professional competence underpinned by knowledge and understanding. And to show an issue we actually have, and I'm sorry, this is UK centric, but I'm pretty sure this is similar across the globe. When I worked with the National Apprenticeship, we surveyed all professional bodies across the UK. So that's all professions, not just engineering, but all professions. And if you look there, to become professionally registered or a professional membership of a body, if you look there, the majority of professions require you to have a degree. I think that's disastrous for the future of professions. If you look at level 3, which is the apprenticeship stroke A-level equivalents, there's 16% of professional bodies, but that's primarily the engineering profession, because we do, of course, have Eng Tech as a professional level, although we have to get more people to promote that. And I don't think that's just down to the engineering profession, it's down to wider professions. We have to start getting people in earlier, rather than, I mean, typically if you've got a degree and go for professional registration, the minimum age you're going to be is perhaps mid-20s. So we have to start getting people to think about that professional registration and then how that works through their career. So what we're looking at, I think, in anything we design in the future, traditionally, these aren't designed in a holistic way, but the academic knowledge, the technical certificate, the degree is just normally a pillar that sits down the middle. And then the employer industry designs their competence separately, and the professional body sort of does theirs separately. It has been changing over the years, but it's very important that there's a blurring actually of those lines. And we don't make people do assessments in a degree for the sake of it, when if they're actually working in the workplace, they can be demonstrating occupational competence as well as academic knowledge and understanding. That's absolutely key. And I think we will get better individuals and better knowledge and understanding by blurring those lines in what we do. So to conclude, I think we've got to look at access to the professions, back to the stairway that I showed earlier on. We have to target those access, and we have to recognize that we should have stopping off points. You know, there shouldn't be timelines on these things in what we do. There shouldn't be timelines on degrees. Traditional degrees are 3 years because they've always been 3 years. Why can't they be 2 years? Why can't they be 5 years? They need to be flexible to suit an individual's requirement, particularly perhaps as we're developing and perhaps more people are employed while they're actually undertaking degrees, particularly in the professionally based subjects. And we've got to have more overt and visible the opportunities that have always existed to progress to the professions in a number of occupations as an alternative to the traditional degree, i.e. the holistic and blurring the knowledge and understanding occupational and professional competence. So I'd like to thank you for the time. Just to say there, the MLA College commitment, we are about delivering outstanding flexible education and training, particularly in a distance learning context. And I think that's extremely important. Promoting the conservation and sustainable use of the environment for the advancement of the global community. And I think most importantly, we want to develop people who are committed to the values that benefit humanity. So thank you for your time, and I'll hand you back to Philip.
Yeah, thanks very much, John. Hopefully the video live streamed okay to everyone. I was just having a few connectivity issues my end, but I understand it will be there for the live or for the catch up later on. So they'll edit that video in just in case you weren't picking that up clearly. So you can go back and reflect on that and revisit that at your leisure. But there's a whole bunch of questions coming in, so I'll go straight to the questions, John. And the one that's got the most votes to kick us off is, do you think that distance learning is looked upon less favorably than traditional in-person courses? And how, if so, can that view be changed?
I think it probably depends where people are in their career. I mean, if you looked at that video, there was someone there who had, been progressing in their career, and I think so. People who tend to be slightly more mature, I think distance learning now has looked at a fantastic way to access knowledge and understanding in higher education in a flexible way that they require. I think perhaps for those that are perhaps coming from high school, from A levels, perhaps distance learning is not looked at in the way that it actually could be. And we have to do that. I do think it's perhaps difficult to say, to look at positives that come out of COVID-19, and people keep saying new normal and things like that, and I hate all terms like that. But I do think it's an opportunity for us to reflect and look truly at what we need going forward. I personally feel a well-designed distance learning program can actually offer an individual a better learning experience than I've worked at a couple of universities, as you saw, and at dean level and everything. And I think any learning environment is only as good as what an individual puts into it. And it's very frustrating seeing people do traditional degrees that perhaps turn up at a lecture and don't engage, or perhaps don't even turn up at lectures, And I think actually in distance learning, it's more difficult for an individual to hide. There is more contribution required from the individual. There's possibly more directed support with a tutor. So for someone who is more mature in their career, I think distance learning is potentially becoming seen as equal, if not potentially the norm, because of the flexibility it does. I think there's a lot of work to do for a younger person to appreciate what a distance learning program could offer. And I don't think distance learning will ever replace the traditional route with a traditional university. But I do think the numbers of people that are going to university might change, because I think we'll start seeing more young people going into jobs. I think that will change. So then we will need flexible higher education and knowledge and understanding programs for those. So I think we're in a transition phase is the answer to that question. And it'll be interesting to see how it develops over the next few years. But one thing I can tell you is post-COVID-19, we have seen a spike in applications, and we had a very large May intake compared to other years. So we'll see now what actually happens over the next year or two.
Okay, thanks for that. So I guess as a follow-on question, are all these distance education-based courses, particularly the MSc ones, accredited and then accepted in the industry?
They're accepted within the industry in the context that, yes, they are routes through to chartered engineer. Because they are standalone top-ups, they are not accredited. For instance, you have to be careful of the terminology. They're not accredited by a professional body, but it's you have to look at the terminology. The way they're actually utilised is as part of an overall package. So if you look at UK Spec, for instance, in what it's doing, the MSc top-up can be used to demonstrate the knowledge and understanding that is required at level 7. If you look at that interview, and I don't know if I'll have time to show that again, because I now realise that I don't think the sound was actually shared when I shared the screen. I did it when we did it in trial, but I'm not sure that was done. I could show that 3-minute video again to show how it's actually utilised. So when you're doing your matrix for your professional registration, what it is a way of showing the top-up at level 7. The programs are fully validated at the minute by the University of Plymouth. But as it's a top-up MSc, the knowledge and understanding is demonstrated through the matrix process that you'll, for instance, use for UK Spec, or you'll actually utilise for any of the IMarEST registers.
Okay, thanks. And Daniel's telling me that it played okay, and certainly, yeah, until my internet dropped, I was getting it, but I just lost connectivity partway through. Yeah.
So there was, so I can go back to them. There's an individual there who, you know, had been in the Navy, they'd undertaken a degree, etc. But what they actually needed was a top-up. But a top-up can't be accredited by a professional in isolation, because for those who know, on the sort of academic side of the accreditation from a professional body, you would be accrediting the whole MEng, i.e. the 4-year program together. This is actually a top-up. So an individual might have different routes into our top-up. They might not even have a degree. They might be coming into the top-up masters based on professional experience. So what it is, it's a tool to allow flexible routes through to professional registration and demonstrate their knowledge and understanding at level 7, master's level.
Yeah, and there's a related question to this. What do you mean by a top-up MSc? Topping up what? Is it not a full MSc? Yeah.
So with the full MScs are available in our sustainable maritime operations. So if you're looking routes to CMAR Tech, or possibly even CMAR Sci, depending on the routes, you could do the full sustainable maritime operations MSc. The top-up is just the research dissertation only. So what we give you based on your professional experience, so if you look at the individual in the video, lots of professional experience through the Royal Navy and what they'd actually done and their present job. So we can look at accreditation of prior experiential learning, which means you don't have to do the taught element of the MSc. So you have a accreditation of prior experiential learning, and then you just do the research dissertation of the MSc. So you still come out with a full MSc, but you only have to do the research dissertation aspect. And that will be tailored to your requirements. You know, particularly, let's say you were looking at professional registration, but perhaps you wanted to demonstrate more design aspect, then you could do your dissertation in the design area, or I'm just giving that example, or any other area that you might require.
Okay, and I think there's another follow-on one to this. Is the MLA program looking at accreditation from legislation such as MCA for watchkeeping certificates, i.e. STCW 2010?
We're not offering those ourselves. No, we're higher education, but we'll work with all partners in what we do there. But we aren't offering STCW programs. But indeed, routes through from the traditional officer cadet route, there a number of people that have done officer cadet route and then sailed as chief engineer or whatever. That is, for instance, a classic route onto the MSc top-up program that I've just described, in particular the engineering for the marine professional. But equally, those that have come shoreside and perhaps don't want to develop the engineering side so much, the sustainable maritime operations, which give the broader marine context, is also a popular route for those individuals, be they from the deck side or the engine side.
Okay, thanks. And so the next one is about connectivity, and I must admit I felt like I was on a ship just now when the link was dropping, but here we go. How much of a barrier is poor connectivity at sea for students? Will improvements in vessel connectivity open up new opportunities for learning and development? And I know you mentioned about the USB stick, but maybe you can just expand on that. Yeah.
I mean, the answer to that is I think yes is the answer. It's always going to improve, and it's improving all the time. I mean, if we just go back even, well, not many years, I'm thinking of what I'm holding in my hand here, and what's available is it's an exponential. So yes, it will, but perhaps that always still comes at a cost of something dropping out. So I think what's extremely important from our point of view in the design of our total learning package is making the material available for the individual wherever they are. So for instance, when we start a program, if an individual is going to be at sea and they're doing it, they will be sent all the information through a USB stick so as they have accessibility. I mean, my own feeling is that in 5 years' time you might not need that, but who knows? You're in the middle of the ocean, anything can actually happen. So we will always, I think, for people that need it, it's important that the total learning package through the USB stick is actually available to all. And that's important in designing the TLP, that was the intention of doing it, to make the material available all the time. There's I suppose the key thing perhaps at sea is when you can have the conversations with your tutor. That becomes more. But again, we actually phase that in. It's very organized before perhaps they go to sea, and so it actually works. And although we might have 13-week modules, they can actually be extended, for individuals and what they do. The whole point is the flexible delivery mechanism to allow all individuals to undertake it.
Okay, great. Just conscious of the time, because the questions are rolling in here. So if you can perhaps click on the like to try and move the questions up the order of priority. And for those of you that will need to drop out, then of course you can follow up, you can review this, you can catch up on demand. So let's go then to the next one on the list. So how do you identify the needs and gaps in higher level skills, and therefore the opportunities for IMarEST stroke MLA to support professional development in new areas?
Wow, there's a lot in that question. I mean, I think a lot of that is down to the employer. The model that I actually showed with the organization employer that we did there, they contacted IMarEST because their traditional route, they used to employ master mariners or chief engineers. That route was drying up for them, and they wanted to employ people with COC class 3. And obviously that left them with complete skills gaps that they wanted. Now, the beauty is that IMarEST worked with that organization and MLA to develop that holistic model, but that was very bespoke for that employer. So that's the first answer, really. There's a bespoke ways for to work specifically with an employer. The other way is through an individual's requirement needs and through the membership. I mean, what we have found is that the membership committee will look at individuals' needs. You know, let's say, you know, Philip, I can take your example, you're an incorporated engineer. If you wanted to, and by the way, no one has to progress to CEng, it's not about that. There are no levels in these professional registrations. Everyone's valued at every level. But if you wanted to be chartered engineer, you for instance, you might fill in your matrix, you might send it to IMarEST, to the membership, and the membership might come back and say, Philip, sorry, you know, it's not quite ready for professional registration yet. You've got gaps in this area. And then if it was in a knowledge and understanding at level 7 and they wanted more, then indeed that would then come back to us. But not only us, I should say. Yes, IMarEST are one of our shareholders along with BAU Global, but indeed, I must say, you know, there are other options available for that individual that they could actually go. Just that I would say, I think, you know, our flexible distance offers perhaps more flexibility. So then there's the individual. Perhaps then there are other areas. I mean, let's take cybersecurity coming on board. That then comes into the professional development side of things, not so much the registration. So maybe through the TLB and yourself, Philip, and the TLB, that, you know, identifying these gaps that, for instance, I showed the training app that we actually have, that IMarEST with the MLA could start putting more training apps available for people to undertake their CPD, that could be made available either through Echo or indeed through our own app. So we've all got a role in that. It's very difficult from an individual to employer to perhaps a TLB working with the membership, because of course, bear in mind that all the members can contribute to the TLB through the special interest groups. And that's where we can actually start getting that together. So there's a ranging from, yes, of course, academic programs, but that's in partnership, you know, with employers. But I think every member has a role to play in that.
Yeah, no, I think great response, and there's been some tremendous opportunities over this conference for people to get involved in different areas as well. Yeah. I'll take the next couple of questions, I think, conscious of the time. So next one up, are students at MLA automatically enrolled as student members of the IMarEST? And do you have a view on how students can be encouraged to retain membership after?
Right. Yes, and yes. They are, I mean, I actually, the majority that come to us as students, I can't actually say this for sure, I'll have a look afterwards, but a lot of them are actually members of IMarEST anyway, you know, and they're progressing their career. I think the student members, I mean, I'm not possibly best to ask, there's a lot of staff members at IMarEST that could answer this better than I could, but, you know, there's a fantastic graduate pathway now. And the important thing is the communication with them when they finish their degree. Of course, it depends. We have to bear in mind, of course, that a lot of individuals that do the traditional degree don't actually perhaps go on into the marine and maritime sector. So IMarEST has a key role to actually play in this. The graduate scheme is fantastic, but it's really making individuals as they graduate that program is there for them. And indeed, it's you know, the support that IMarEST gives is fantastic, and it actually makes routes through to professional registration very clear. I think we just have to, as a professional body, keep reinforcing the benefits of that professional body. And you know, these 2 weeks has been one of that. You know, from a CPD perspective, and I hope people have thought of this, if they're asked to provide their professional development evidence to stay professionally registered, well, what better than this 2-week conference that people have actually done? They'll have more than done their professional development requirements. And it's not about a tick in the box. I mean, I think, sorry, I've gone into professional development, but I suppose that's what I'm sort of passionate about. You have to get graduates thinking about professional development, and it's not static. You know, you don't do something and you finish, you actually carry on. But for me, professional development is about what you need to do as well. It's not a tick in the box for the amount of hours. You know, if you, which I know some countries actually say you must do like 30 hours professional development. well, that's rubbish, because I can go and sit in on lectures that I know all about and fall asleep, but I'll get the tick that I've done a couple of hours professional development, but really I've done none. So yeah, so IMarEST, you know, is very important in this role, and I think are doing fantastic work on this. And again, look at the graduate scheme that's actually available, and it's about working with the accredited universities to make sure that students know that those routes are available. And indeed, you know, we have a role in that as MLA College as well, although a lot of our applicants already know about IMarEST and indeed are already members.
Okay, thanks for that, John. Yeah, and I think, you know, personally, I think the IMarEST have been on a tremendous journey over the last 10 years. And yeah, I think, you know, this conference is probably a very good reason why people should retain their membership, just to see the way things are developing and the opportunities it presents. But I go to the last question I'll take here is, what does it mean that academic programs at MLA College are validated by the University of Plymouth?
Yeah, so when you obtain a degree from the MLA College, you will have a University of Plymouth degree. So at the moment, we are working with the Office for Students and Quality Assurance Agency down our route to becoming a private university. But that takes time with the Quality Assurance Agency and getting new degree awarding powers. But we're very fortunate in that we are based in Plymouth. And we have a very strong relationship with the University of Plymouth. And as people will know, University of Plymouth are one of the leading marine and maritime providers across the globe. And so to have them as a validating partner is extremely important for us. So yes, the degree, although delivered by MLA College, is validated by the University of Plymouth. So you will also have a University of Plymouth certificate.
Okay, brilliant. And with that, I think I'll start bring it to a close. You know, I just wish I'd listened to such a presentation, perhaps in the earlier part of my career, John. You know, I guess for me, you know, a lot of comfort in hearing about the flexibility and the clarity that you gave around distance versus online, and the value of that occupational competence. So yeah, you know, I really took a lot from that. There was a question there about playing that video again, but again, I would say it will be available on IMarEST TV on demand, so people can go back and review that. So just to say, you know, thank you everyone for joining this live feed and watching on IMarEST TV, and a special thanks to John for taking the time today, you know, to provide us with a very informative and personally, I thought, inspiring presentation about that MLA College partnership with IMarEST and this holistic approach that that it brings to knowledge and understanding of occupational competence and professional competence, you know, when developing routes to professional registration. So thank you very much.
Thank you.